and requesting the taxpayers' money go to Niger Hill for mothers involved against gun violence. Pastor Valenia Green, citizens' participation and recognition in the community. Ordinance is held over 64011, 64014, and 64015 are considering approval for conditional use permit to allow a home-based daycare for property at 1016 Belvedere Circle East. The 64014 and 15 are considering modifications of previously approved planning approval for property at 3650, 3704, 3708, 3758 Springle Avenue, and for the PUD, the same address. Consent resolutions held over 37085. Recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer table wine off premises only license to Dolphin Sitco on Dolphin Island Parkway.
Very good.
4128, declare the structure at 605 Gale Street a public nuisance and order it demolished or secured.
We're going to table this after information from the MHDC, the city's historic development department, and also the owner. They're considering and finding that it has significant historic value to the city of Mobile, and also after the owner now realizing the same and obtaining a permit and starting to work on the property, I recommend this be tabled.
Mr. Nathan.
Just want to follow up, Mr. Carroll. I completely agree that property owner own equity is like, so it looks like that happened.
All right, thank you.
Resolutions held over 21075, authorized contract with Keatom Construction, doing business as Southern Preservation Systems for emergency repair and remediation of brick wall at Civic Center.
Mr. President,
Mr. Woods.
I think we should table this. I think there's another option. I think we go with the fence option or provide that option to the administration, let them roll with this and get this thing done. But I think we should table this.
I concur. I made the same motion last week. Motion to table.
Anything else in one? Mr. Davis.
The question I had last week was, as I recall, was that it seems like to me we either have to repair the damage, repair the problem. In other words, if we're going to keep the theater open, we have to fix it. If we're not going to keep the theater open, then we can let the wall fall down. Now, I thought the information I got last week indicated that we would be able to recover the cost of repairing the wall quite rapidly if we kept the theater open because of what's already planned there. So I don't know. So I failed to understand why we would at this point fail to repair the wall. If we're going to make enough money by keeping the theater open to pay more than we need to repair the wall.
Yeah, at least in the short term, while these events are planned, not forever necessarily, right?
Well,
So I guess the understanding that from Mr. Davis, what you're saying is that between now and the end of the year, we're going to recoup the the $250,000 because of the events that are at the theater, I guess. I mean, because right now, only on this calendar, and again, I know being from an event venue that everything that's booked isn't on the calendar just yet, but I think we're only showing that we're booked through the next 3 months, I guess.
But this is over the information we got indicated that over the next, if I'm reading this correctly, over the next 6 months, we would receive $620,000 in revenue and have a net income of $316,950, which is in excess of the expected cost of making the repair. And at the same time, so it would cover the cost of the repair, and at the same time, it would keep us from having to displace all these events that are going to occur over the next 6 months.
Mr. President,
Mr. Carroll.
may I ask, who do the net profits go to? Do they go to the managing partner of the the auditorium and civic center, or do they come directly to the city? And how is that proportioned out?
Mr. President, can I catch up with you here? It goes to the city.
100% of those, the profits go to the city.
Everything, we manage it for the city.
Could you just give your full name just for the public?
It goes back.
Could you give us your full name for the public information?
Oh, I'm sorry. Kendall Wall. I'm the general manager for ASM, for the convention center, the civic and the Sanger. And to Councilman's question, yeah, there's 4 or 5 that are ticketed, but we have about 70 event days between now and the end of June. That's fixing they'll hit on the calendar. We hold back till after Mardi Gras. These are all the dance groups, rehearsals and performances, distinguished women, ballet. We have the Southeastern Theater Group that's coming in March. That's about a $10 million economic impact, according to Visit Mobile. The distinguished women, 6.6 million. So there's a lot between now and the end of June. But to Councilman Dave's point, yeah, that's the show income report gets you to that 316.
I thought I read something about distinguished women in Montgomery now. Did I read something about distinguished women being in Montgomery now?
Distinguished women, I'm sorry, what?
You distinguished young women being in, did I
They
read?
have the state program in
Okay.
Montgomery, but the
Yeah.
national. program-
This is the national. This is
The other thing, when we're talking numbers here, just let me read it off in my mind right quick. According to the last operating budget and financial statement we received from the Civic Center, they were operating just about $2,543,000 in debt every year, which eclipses beyond a shadow of a doubt any profits that are realized between now and March. So in essence, we're still throwing good money after bad, even if we do move forward with this, because we have a loss over there every year that we're managing. Also, it has not been 100% determined whether or not that roof could sustain any type of impact yet. That's still a lost question that we don't have an answer to. And thirdly, we have other options that are half the cost that we're looking at when we're talking about repair. So we have options to take as opposed to just taking in one assumption here and spending $300,000 to pallet some bricks, and on top of that, put waterproofing on a building that I'm pretty sure everybody's found out by now that we're probably going to tear down. So we're throwing good money after bad here, and that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I'm talking on both ends of this, both as a public servant and both as a project manager that knows better. So, I mean, I'm offering some good information, some good advice here. I mean, I would not throw good money after bad in this situation until we know exactly what we're going to do.
Dave.
Fact of the matter is that we have a structural engineer who will not sign off on anything else other than the repair project that's been put forward. A structural engineer. If we, now, Mr.
Hold on, Mr.
Mr. Carroll, I'm not
Well,
finished.
Hold on,
when you
Mr. Carroll.
finish, when you finish.
Mr. Carroll. Go ahead, Mr. Dave.
Now, I suggest to you that it would be imprudent for us to allow people to continue to enter the theater when our own structural engineer has told won't sign off on anything other than the full repair. There's no one that dislikes spending $300,000 on a building we're probably going to tear down more than me. But the question is not how much the entire Civic Center is losing, but what we should do with respect to the theater over the next 6 months. If we go ahead and make the repairs that have been suggested, we can keep the theater open. We can cover the cost of those repairs with the net revenues that we will receive, and we won't have to displace all these different events and the people, our citizens, who would like to attend these events from going to them.
Mr. President,
Mr. Carroll.
may I remind the council of the timeline of repair that we're looking at. We're looking at April, May before we can even probably start the repairs based on the calendar and schedule that we're given. We'll probably already be beyond the time that's needed for the Civic Center to even do or operate the events that they want. They'll be operating before we even start the repairs. So I think that chronologically, we're looking at looking at apples and oranges here when you're talking about the president's diagram and the schedule of repair and how we're gonna and when the work's actually gonna start. I mean, we went through that 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago when you were not here, Mr. Daves. That when we get to the point in time of construction, these events will already pass, and that's doing the repair. So, I mean, if you want to go ahead and fix it, that's fine. But by the time we fix it, those things are going to be finished anyway.
All right, Ms. Gregory.
Yeah, let's go back over the number of events that you have that
Those events will be finished.
that
before
you
they
will be
start.
able to carry on with prior to the time of prior to the time of repairs, getting going. And holding these events would not be possible if repairs are ongoing, that sort of thing. So I think that's kind of where we're stuck right now with,
Well, the events start this weekend. The
right.
first one that comes in is a dance group that starts this weekend. And then they run from, if we're just talking to the end of June, if we're talking to the end of June, then it's going to run through, through that time period.
So you have events scheduled from today through the end of June.
I do.
What do we
Okay.
look like after June?
So there is a break in the action in July, August time period. We have Paw Patrol rehearsing in September for like 20-something days, and then they open the event here. After that, then, we were only booked, working with administration through March of 25 for the theater or civic. All that's all as far as we're going. So to your point, we're back to some dance, some the ballet, those kind of in the fall. It's not as strong in the fall as it is right now in the spring.
And then repairs would begin when? If we should decide to make some repairs, when would they begin and how long would that take?
Sam?
May.
The contractor stated he can mobilize within a week, but I would allow 2 weeks for that. Then he's got 3 weeks to remove the brick from the building, and then a week or two to put the waterproofing on and demobilize. So he could theoretically start by the end of February. We will have to schedule his work activities, of course, around the events, which means he may have to start early in the morning to allow them to get done with their work so the events can occur in the evening or work weekends. So that he would schedule his work around those events, but he could start within 2 weeks.
But he could schedule his work around the events? There would be no problem with having these events while he's making these repairs?
We just have to work together.
Yeah. I mean, we'd work together with ASM's folks and schedule his activities around the events. So we don't have to cancel any events while the work's going on.
But now if we should decide to just tear it all down and not make these repairs, you could get your events through the end of March or no, June. I think you were saying June, there's a break.
June's a break.
June would be a break. You could schedule the tear down starting in June, something like that.
The earliest we would probably be able to get that into place would be July, August.
July,
to do a tear
August.
down, because that's, that whole package would have to be put together and it would have to come through council for approval. And so that would not be able to start until
So
July. or
basically, we
August.
could do the events through like July, August.
Well, I mean, I think
without
what he's
having to
saying,
move them.
what he's saying is he can work around, but I mean, I think the point to note what Sam's saying is we ain't even going to get started till July, August. We're not booking past March 2025. So for 6-7 months, we're going to spend $250,000. I mean, and then, to Mr. Davis's point, I mean, he's exactly right. The structural engineer that we went to wouldn't sign off on it, I guess, based on, that's absolutely right. But I would imagine that probably looked like a email chain or a thoughtful response, I guess, off the cuff. So, I mean, I'm sure that if he dug down into it, we could get a true answer from a structural engineer of whether or not the the second floor that's concrete could hold the impact of a falling brick. But at the end of the day, I mean, dealing with engineers, they're not cheap either. So let's just go ahead and tack another 75,000 onto that to do a full-fledged engineering review, I guess. But I mean, at this point, I see both sides of it. But I think the best option for the taxpayer, for the residents, for what we're going to do, we're going to get an answer next month. Like Mr. Daves and Mr. Carroll said, the way it sounded looked like we're going to tear the building down. But I understand where we're at, but for 6 months, I don't see spending $250,000 whenever there are other options to ensure that safety's there. Also to protect the chiller unit. I think there's a lot more cheaper options than a $250,000.
Mr. Reynolds.
The net outcome of either option is basically not, right? So no money off the backs of the taxpayer, except one option tells all of these people that are having the events, and that, to Mr. Dave's point, these folks come and attend, our citizens, they don't get to do that anymore with one option, by shutting it down. Distinguished young women have to scramble and find a new place to go starting, looks like June 17th. They have to make other arrangements. So, and our other venues can they be accommodated?
The one that can is the Southeastern Theater Group in March.
The last time they were here in 2018, they used all three buildings. This time they're only using the convention center and the Civic Theater. Sanger, we do have dates, so we're holding those dates over there. But all the rest of them, no, sir.
So, I mean,
Distinguished Women, all the rest of the different ones, we're booked at the convention center, we're booked at the Sanger.
and we know that even if it was the will of the council and administration to tear that down, the theater down, that can't happen until July, August. That's on a streamlined process, correct? It's a net neutral here financially. The cost associated with the repairs are going to be offset. One option is forcing all of these organizations to basically not have their event or find some other place or find some other partner, which we run the risk of losing them forever as a client. And the other one is we accommodate them. I think we just unfortunately make the repairs.
Mr. Penn, we're going to try to go ahead and move on. We just vote up and down. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. My only question, so if we gate it, we will not be able to host the events, correct? If we gate it,
Fence it.
will we be able to host the current
If
events?
you fence it like we were talking about.
Yes.
No, I think we can make it work if you fence it. We can still have the events.
Events, as far as inside's what I'm understanding. We would just fence it so the public itself we would protect them coming around on the outside. Most of these guys are going to come in the front door anyway, all the different groups that are coming, because we don't have much parking in the back to begin with. Very limited.
So
Well, you also have the life safety issue with that.
The life safety is a big one.
If you fence it and you have an emergency in the building that you have to evacuate,
Got to fence it so you can get out.
you've got to have access through that fencing. Otherwise, you've blocked emergency egress.
We'd have to look at that part.
okay, so for me, I guess when I look at it, we need to continue the events. One, because we're going to get an impact from an economic standpoint. So we want the events to continue. So whatever the best option to make sure that we can continue these events, I believe that we need to make sure that we do that. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Mr. President, I think that we should allow all three options to be available here and not just the $300,000 of expenditure. When he talks about life safety, tube and lock and construction escape corridors at those doors would work just the same. Just like on a high-rise building, when you're demoing it, those safety corridors are in place. That's a very minimal expense in life safety, which we discussed last time. I don't think that we've explored all the options here. I think that there's just a push here to do one option that we've been given. And I think that due to experience, I mean, there isn't a lot of realization of what actually can be done with limited costs. So, Mr. President, if you would, please, we need to make sure that all three options are available at 10:30 and we take the best possible option.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
we heard these other options may cost $100,000.
A little bit more than that.
Okay, so we go against what the structural engineer says that we'll not sign off on. We don't mitigate our, legal hazard per se by taking these other options. And then what do we gain from doing that? You're talking about $200,000 potentially if everything goes right and half of a building doesn't fall on somebody. That doesn't seem like viable alternatives. Thank you.
All right, we just vote up and down at 10:30. Madam Clerk.
60, 120, and 121, adopt the Community and Housing Development CDBG Home and ESG 2024-25 action plans and adopt an additional public service provider to the CDBG 2024-25 action plan Boys and Girls Club.
Mr. President,
Mr. Carr.
I got a bunch of contracts that I looked through, had a couple of questions on some, but when I added them all up, they didn't total to the total value of the CDBG monies that we received. Is there a reason for that? Was there a reason for that? I guess we don't have an answer.
I will look back over it should total out to the amount. So if you I can check with you after this and we can see what you're looking at that's not totaling.
Yeah, well, you guys gave me, I think, 11, 12 contracts on an average of about $45,000. That came up to just under $600,000 in the CDBG allocation. It's well over $1 million. It's basically $500,000 or better missing. Let's talk about it between
So we'll
minutes.
talk, okay, we'll do that.
03135, appoint Richard Pipkins and George Hunter to the Industrial Development Board. 08136, approve purchase order to Cart Doctor for 2 Yamaha utility vehicles for tennis center.
Excuse me, Cart Doctor? For what? What were we buying from Cart Doctor?
Utility
Utility vehicles,
vehicles.
You mean like golf carts?
probably, is that what they are?
Were they bid?
Okay.
Yeah, were they bid or we're just reaching out to this in particular company? Okay. Low bid to bidders, okay.
And this one it's only 27,000. You may consider taking it by consent.
This is held over.
No,
it's held over.
These are held over. 08137, approved purchase order to Citysco for 30 heated banquet cabinets for convention center. 08138, approved purchase order to Global Industries for office cubicle workstations. 08139, approved purchase order to Cardex Rimstar for automated storage carousel. 08140, approved purchase order to Time Clock Plus for annual renewal of hardware support and maintenance services for timekeeping equipment. 21141, authorized contract with Chris Brewer Contracting for 2024 annual street maintenance. 21142, authorized contract amendment with Moffett and Nickel for Cooper Riverside Park bulkhead replacement, design, closeout, and construction administration. 21143, authorized contract with Motor Carrier Consultants for workplace drug and alcohol testing for city employees. Ordinances being introduced, 64016 and 64017 are considering the modifications for the previously approved PUDs on Rangeline Road and Airport Boulevard. Consent resolutions being introduced, 31147, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive a grant from the Gary Sinise Sinise
Forrest
Foundation.
Gump.
Yes.
Mhm.
37-148, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer, table wine off premises only license to Super K on Airport Boulevard. 60-149, approve award of special bonus to Public Works Employees of the Month. 60-150, 151, and 152 are determining appropriations to the Mobile Area Mardi Gras Association and Mobile Area Black Chamber of Commerce serve a public purpose and approving payment. CIP resolutions being introduced, 21-153, authorized contract of Harris Contracting for new pickleball and tennis courts at Crawford, Murphy, and Stotts Parks, $1,516,200. Resolutions being introduced, 08-154, approve purchase order to Forensic Software Company for annual renewal of forensic identification software, $42,000. 08-155, approved purchase order to Lamar Companies for billboard advertising for Art Museum, $21,126. 08-156, approved purchase order to Magnet Forensics for annual renewal of subscription for forensic software, $54,390. 08-157, approved purchase order to Vermeer Southwest Sales and Service for wood chipper, $53,504.45. 08-158, approved purchase order to Vulcan for street sign holders for traffic engineering, $26,050. 21-159, authorized contract with Volker for Heroes Plaza Design Closeout, $35,423.61.
This a change order? Is this a change order? To Volker? Is that a change order? What did we change and why the additional cost? We rebid it? The second phase of it? Is it a larger scale than the first time?
Can you come to the mic?
Can you step up to the mic, please?
Good morning. Yes, sir, we rebid it and we went through the process of value engineering. I can go over all the details of, there are 6 different criteria for the change. I can go over those with you
So
individually.
the addition in cost to Vulcan is because of the scope of, is because of the value of the contract and their percentage of the fee? Their fee is based on the total value of the contract, right?
It was a lump sum change.
Twenty-one 160, authorized contract with Rec Desk for Parks and Recreation Software Services, $24,500. 37-161 and 162 are considering applications of Roosevelt Robertson to operate a shuttle service and application of Mountain Taxi to operate a taxi service. Call for public hearings, 41-163. Call for public hearing to consider the application of Top Cat Limousine to operate a shuttle service scheduled February 27th. Announcements.
Council. Anything from the council? Anything from the administration? Okay. All right, we'll see each other at 10:30.